How much is a script worth?
It's a very good question. It depends basically what it is that the writer is trying to get out of it. A script can be a tool. A script can be a great showcase of what a writer can bring to Hollywood, bring to the market. But that's just one aspect of spec screenwriting, where you're trying to present yourself as a writer for hire. At which point a script has an unlimited amount of potential in terms of price, because you can build a career off that mindset. If you're going in as a one-time pop-off script where you're going to write something specifically that's marketable and sellable, you can probably flip it for a cheap deal if you're able to secure a purchase. Generally, you'll probably be offered an option agreement, which means that a company is going to borrow the rights to it and see if they can generate a film adaptation from your script. If you're one of the lucky ones who's able to sell a script for purchase and actually receive a check for it up front, it's generally worth about 10 to 15% of what the actual out-of-pocket budget will be to produce the film.
And in most cases, what would that be? Well, like for let's say a made-for-television movie, what could a screenwriter expect to see for their
budgets? A budget is a very relative term, because a budget is, you give a budget for a group of financiers or pre-sellers who you're trying to get money from. And you're going to give them a certain number so that you can gain a little bit more from them. If you are on set, you might give a different budget number so that you can avoid certain issues potentially with contractors maybe trying to take advantage of you, tax codes, unions. So there's a certain budget level might be presented there. And then the final budget that's actually released after the fact could include whole marketing components that were never factored in early on. So budget's a pretty relative term. So how much one movie might be budgeted for versus another is all over the map. It depends on cast. It depends on how much collateral was secured in advance. It's kind of all over the map.
Sure, but what could a screenwriter expect to get for their script? Like, just bottom line, like if someone says, you know, should I really invest all this time in honing this craft of mine and coming up with multiple drafts? What could I expect to see from one script?
My belief is this: what a screenwriter can really expect out of a single script. I don't think a screenwriter should really look at it in that way. I think a screenwriter could potentially get, you know, a couple $1,000s up to tens of thousands of dollars for a single script if it just nails it. Screenwriting is really more of it's a craft, and it's a kind of a lifelong investment, I believe, of time. And I think that a writer is going to make a lot more money if they're writing what Hollywood needs overall, because then they can become a go-to writer. They can become a go-to writer that production companies like the ones that I work for are always in need of. That, you know, when we have a film that we're developing, when we have a project that we have funded, we can call up a writer that we know we trust, who can deliver that kind of content quickly, and we can churn a very quick deal, $15,000, $25,000 for a couple of you know, drafts of a script. And that can be an ongoing situation, and you can write 3-4 scripts a year in that scenario. If you're writing on spec in the hopes that Hollywood will just perfectly align with what you're pitching to them, it's a very, very, very tough, daunting challenge to be able to actually get a transaction on that. I would say slim to nil of making it happen. That's why I think it's more important for writers, if they're going to write spec, which is a requirement in the beginning, write what Hollywood needs, focus on those goldmine genres, the must-have content that the system wants, and use it as a sample of what you can bring to the marketplace and what your value is as a writer, and then you can become a go-to writer. So the big answer to the question is, how much can you make? It's all over the map. It's more about not looking at it as a one-off, how much can I make on this script? It's more, how is this script going to aid my career as a writer, which a writer can make a very substantial amount of money if they play the game right.
Sure, but for a first-time newbie, let's say 2,000 really could be the lowest, like at the low end of what they could expect to see.
2,000 could easily be like an option buy-in. So 2,000, like a company might say, okay, there's something to the script. We like the idea. We're not convinced that anyone's really interested, or maybe they go, we just had an interesting conversation with company XYZ last week, and they seem to like something like this. Maybe we put an option on this script of $1,500, $2,500 as a courtesy of let's borrow the rights for a period of time, so we can pitch it to this company. And then if a deal takes place, fantastic, the writer gets a payout, the production company gets the script. If no deal takes place, it's much less risk for the production company or the producer or whomever is giving the option. And so in those instances, that might be the best option. That might be the best opportunity a writer gets on that script.
Right.
It's really hit or miss.
Sure.
It's really hit or miss.
Scott, we always hear about person writing this dream script. It's their first project. They've had it for years, and it just pours out of them in one weekend. How many times have you seen a writer's first-time script actually be sold or optioned?
Never.
Never.
I've never personally seen it. And I think that that's a fantastic dream scenario. I believe that those stories really stem from writers who actually have a career in motion, and they have contacts they can reach out to. And it's not that they sit and actually write a screenplay over 48 hours, it's that they have an idea and they already have a team of people who trust them because they've delivered so many quality scripts in the past. A newbie writer from scratch, throwing an idea to a major studio and expecting a check in the mail or some big contract with an agent, I've never seen it happen. And I think that maybe a script has moved from point A to point B and has maybe moved up the channels. By the time that movie reached the screen, I don't think it had any similarities to the original idea, and I'm not sure that the writer received anything from it either. I've never heard of it.
So most people that either sell or option their work, what is this, their third, fourth, fifth time writing a script? I mean, from when you talk to people, what seems to be the general amount that they've gone through, the drafts, the actual incarnation of a story?
I think you need at least 2 to 3 ready-to-go feature-length scripts, or 2 to 3 ready-to-go TV spec script ideas that are completely ready to present to the marketplace. And that takes time to get to. But I think you need that in your arsenal as a minimum to be taken seriously by decision makers and to showcase your skills.
How does a screenwriter pique the interest of studios and decision makers?
I think screenwriters stand their best chance of really getting noticed by knowing what the business needs. So it's not coming in talking about how passionate you are about the script, it's talking and speaking in a way that answers to the needs of the production company, the producer, the studio, etc. There are tried and tested genres that are just, they just nail what the business lives on. And if a young writer wants to come into the business and really just get their emails answered, get their phone calls returned, it's being able to speak about their project and have it answer to those things. It's going to be saying, I'm writing a family film about this, I'm writing a film about this, and it's a very quick point. It's not, never coming of age stories, it's never dramas, it's happier films, it's the kinds of films you see on a red box machine. That's what Hollywood needs to stay in business. And so if you're coming to the table bringing opportunities for Hollywood to continue staying in business, they're going to pay attention to you.
So if you have that indie drama coming of age of, let's say, like a male rebel who's trying to find, answers to life, save that for your own weekend project?
Yeah, and never at any point am I saying, don't write dramas, don't write comedies, don't write the coming of age story. If you have a fantastic idea for a movie, I think a writer should hold on to it. Get the commercial scripts out first, get a reputation of being a screenwriter who can deliver what the system needs, who can write quickly, who can write well, who can write within budget, and get a couple of actual paid gigs, and you'll get them. If you go in the opposite way saying, I know what Hollywood wants, they want this, they want these very deep dramas, coming-of-age dramas, and forcing them to do that, you're not going to get noticed. But if you come and giving them what they want, which are like tween girl family films or Christmas movies with dogs, women in peril thrillers, these kinds of things, Hollywood pays attention to you. And once you are writing those and once you're getting noticed for that work, then you have a collection of contacts and you can say, I have an interesting idea. Could this work? And then you can present those.
I want to go in more to some of those story ideas as well, but I just want to play a hypothetical. Let's say that you and your colleagues are here on one side of the table and I'm a screenwriter. Mm-hmm. So what is this initial meeting like? What should I be bringing with me? What type of work should I have done ahead of time? And even really, how should I be dressed to come to this meeting?
I think a screenwriter should look at a pitch meeting as just a first date. It's not, you don't have to come in with, you don't want to come off with static one-liners about what your scripts are. You want the conversation to be organic. You need to come in professional. You have to dress professional, and that can just be casual, smart, that you would be in a bar in an evening or something like that, not a sports bar, but someplace decent. So, casual clothing, and just keep the demeanor light and easygoing. You want the ideas to feel free-flowing. You want them to feel organic. Always have a cheat sheet with you, but in truth, just treat it like a first date. Like, just let the conversation evolve. You want to be very receptive to other people's ideas, but really a pitch meeting is about auditioning you as a writer to see if you mesh well with the company. Are your ideas in alignment? If they're bringing suggestions about changing the lead from a male to a female, are you comfortable with that? Because those are the sorts of situations that if you're under contract and getting paid, you'll have to listen to and deal with. And so they want to make sure that you're comfortable with that and that you're in synergy together.
So keeping that hypothetical meeting going, what are some red flags that I should be aware of, that I should be careful of? Certain phrases that I should say, or maybe even body posture. Something that's going to make me seem like I'm not agreeable.
I always, the best way to do it, the best way for me to fake confidence, we all have to fake confidence from time to time, is, always expect the best. They have no preconceived notions about who you are as a writer. And vice versa. So don't always assume that Hollywood is out to rip apart new writers or take advantage. We love our writers, and scripts are the foundation of great films, and we need them. So we are looking for the next great writer. We are looking to find people we can mesh well with. The best way to come into a room, be on time, look professional, speak professionally, and when the decision maker in the room or whomever orchestrated the meeting jumps in with an idea, stop and listen to them. And if an idea is presented that you don't agree with, don't attack it. Leave it on the table. Don't counter it right away. Just let the conversation kind of evolve. I think you should always go into a pitch meeting prepared with at least 5 to 10 fleshed out ideas. You can keep that on a cheat sheet of paper if you'd like, and you don't have to necessarily have all of those memorized and ready to roll. You don't even have to bring them up, but if the conversation moves into a direction of what else do you have, maybe the first 2 scripts that got you the meeting aren't what they want to see what else you have, you're ready to roll with that. And if you're reading one of the pitches, if you're giving one of the pitches and they quickly say that's not really in our wheelhouse, we're not interested, stop and move on to the next one. It's not personal. They want to find out if you can deliver what they need.
So summing it up, just keep it light and flexible.
Yeah, keep it very light and flexible. First date mentality, you're just trying to see if you mesh well together. Do you communicate well? Are you having fun? You don't have to pull a stand-up act or anything like that, but make it light, make it easy. It is not a terrifying experience for them, so it does not need to be a terrifying experience for you.
Any phrases a writer should definitely not, I'm just thinking of a job interview. No one wants to say, oh, well, I don't want to work overtime. So is there something in the whole writer sphere that's probably a red flag that someone should hold their tongue on?
I think the biggest thing a writer needs to avoid is entitlement, in truth. It's always be willing to make your script flexible. always be open and receptive to new ideas and completely new takes on your screenplay, however ridiculous or counter they may feel. And don't treat your script like a baby, even though you've committed so much time and energy into it. It's just an object in the eyes of everyone else, and so you have to be able to detach from it. So don't get too personal. Key phrases, I don't think there's really any key phrases necessarily. I would avoid trying to say, I know that XYZ Studio is into these projects right now, or that this is a popular trend, because in truth, Hollywood's planning movies out and series out 2, 3, sometimes 4 years in advance. So they're not really playing the trend game. That's just something that kind of happens organically as content's getting out there. So I wouldn't try to reference that sort of stuff either.
Your advice to screenwriters is to get passionate about what sells. And
Yes.
I know we talked about that earlier. So for them to, I think the description for your book, you were saying to basically they should forget about comedies. Is that correct, or am I?
Look, comedies are fantastic, and you would be correct. Anyone would be correct if they said comedies are very high-grossing, popular movies. They absolutely are. The problem is the best way for a new writer to really break into Hollywood and build a career is to go towards the independent space, not the big studios. There's too much noise at the big studio level. There's way too many barriers. So go to indie Hollywood. That's where I work, and that's where really most of the movies and content, that's where it comes from. So on the comedies front, indie Hollywood is not just thinking US and Canada. We're not thinking our domestic English-speaking markets. We're thinking global. We get a lot of our money from overseas, and the problem with most newbie writers is they want to write something like American Pie, a really raunchy comedy, or they want to write a very smart comedy with high-level humor and witty dialogue. Witty dialogue costs a lot of money to dub. Social nuances in Russia or India or Japan are not what they are here. Not every country in the world celebrates Thanksgiving and understands what the Super Bowl means. There are so many subtleties to the international marketplace that even if you nail your comedy script and make it wide enough for an English-speaking audience to understand, that's a very limited part of the world. And the way a Hollywood executive or the way a producer will read that is, that's a very limited cross-section of money, and I'm missing out on a lot of other revenue that can come in. So comedies are great. Just keep them in your back pocket.
So I'm taking from the Amazon link for your book, Writing for the Green Light, How to Make Your Script the One Hollywood Notices, which is out in March.
It's out in March, yes.
Great. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
And so you say that instead you would encourage them to write family films with kid heroes, action films for aging male stars, and female-driven thrillers.
Yes, those are 3 of what I call the gold mine genres. Yes, yes.
And one thing I notice is sort of the socioeconomic levels of all of these films. When you say like a woman in peril, it's never in a bad apartment. It's always in a really nice place. So it seems like a lot of these, there has to be a certain almost standard of living. People don't want to see, I mean, just from what you see sells, nothing personal or someone's certain taste, but it has to be almost this upper middle class family, and even if it's a murder mystery or something, there always has to be that level. Why? That's so fascinating.
That's where the biggest cross-section of the purchasing marketplace is, in this country and throughout the world. That's where advertisers are seeking to get their advertisements in front of that audience.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah,
if that's who's buying things, right?
Exactly.
But why wouldn't they want to see? They want to see people of their own thing in a story. They want to see someone at their level of their sort of social strata.
Or their idealized level, yes.
Ah, okay, interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, movies and television, it's fantasy. We all want to, we watch it because we identify with these characters, but they are living out something that we're not. They're experiencing something we don't get to. For the female-driven thrillers, I mean, a lot of female-driven thrillers actually answer questions that are more fantasy. What if I had, been with that guy? What if I had made that decision instead? And they sort of answer what could have happened in those scenarios. The tween films, those are fantasies for younger kids where they get to go live this big adventure, and the male action star, I mean, they're just fun, but they really speak to male audiences because it's the ultimate, alpha male doing all the things. It's the Delta Force hero that secretly works on a farm in the middle of Nebraska or something like that. It speaks to middle America, and it speaks to a big cross-section of the world.
And a screenwriter trying to make films for an overseas audience, what should they keep in mind? Let's suppose they realize that a large portion of revenue is coming from overseas. Should they try to target stories and make them more, I'm not sure what your phrasing is of it, but more ethnic, or keep it still very Americanized?
It's okay to be Americanized. It's okay to be very true to, I mean, whatever country you live in and are writing screenplays for. You know, if you're living in England and want to write screenplays for the American market or anything. But I think the biggest trick for a newbie writer is not to assume they understand how the international marketplace works, because that changes all the time. So the best way to get ahead of it is basically just stay neutral, keep themes very universal, and then whenever it comes to a very specific targeted element like Thanksgiving, American football, you know, some colloquialism, always see if there's a way to replace it. Maybe switch out American football with soccer. Maybe instead of Thanksgiving, make it Christmas. That way it's a little bit more balanced and the world can identify with it. But at the same time, I mean, you know, I think most screenwriters are also just avid film fans, and I love a foreign film as much as the next person. So if I'm watching a movie, as long as it's true to that country and I understand the themes behind it, I accept it. And American content does travel the world the best.
So let's take another hypothetical, and let's say one writer has a script about a girl that's in high school and she wants to make sure that she's the one that's voted for prom queen, and she's kind of has a rival that's similar level as she. And then there's another script where it's about a foreign exchange student who's a little out there, and maybe she's an introverted writer, and it's not as, you know, she's maybe not on that same sort of high school level. Which one would you suggest that someone, I mean, it seems like the answer's obvious, but why the high school prom queen? I mean, I'm not attacking you, but I'm just curious, why do people want to see these very sort of cookie cutter films when there's more of a flavorful range out there?
In general, it's because if you're going to a grocery store and you're purchasing a product, you know what you're getting in the end, and that's kind of the idea. When you're watching a movie, when you're going to transact on a movie, whether you're buying a ticket, getting a copy on Amazon or some other, you know, transactional VOD service, you're looking for an emotional experience, and you want one that's best going to cater to the one you're looking to feel. Now, actually, I would offer a third option in this, which would be instead of the high school, I would take the high school script over the foreign exchange one. Hands down. But I would take it and we would probably rebrand that and make it junior high and make it more focused on a tween girl audience, knowing that 9 to 12-year-old girls are the most likely audience to be renting movies and buying movies on something like iTunes, Amazon, or other platforms. And I would see bigger numbers doing that. And I'd make a really nice pink poster. See, this is how we're talking. It's you come in with an idea and then we target an audience we know we need to hit. And then we create a concept around that, and I can already see the key art in my head, and I would go talk to my teams about doing that. I know how much money we can make internationally with a movie like that, and we would go then have either take that writer and have them rewrite it, or we go hire a writer we've had experience with to write the movie we now just created in 2 minutes.
And keeping this film, who's the protagonist? Like, what's her makeup, and who's the evil character, and who's the guy they're fighting?
In a tween girl movie, the protagonist is a young girl who is not the most popular girl in school. She needs to be, you know, fun, average, but you know, like has all the potential to be great, but she just doesn't see it in herself yet. And there's always that cool girl who has all the cool friends and who makes fun of her, and things are always happening that are, you know, it's never going her way. She always makes a fool of herself in front of the boys she likes, etc. And then she has some kind of secret characteristic, a magical ability. Maybe somebody comes to her and she's suddenly granted a day where she can make dreams come true. Maybe some element like that it's a special skill that only she has. She tries to use it to become like the girl she thinks she wants to become, which is the antagonist. And ultimately realizes that she doesn't want to become like that person. She's far better than her and can become something completely different. And at the end, of course, she just realizes it's herself. She's just evolving, blah, 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 blah. But that's the story that just means a lot to them.
And who's the guy that they're both rivals for?
The guy is usually, it differs. There can be the really cute boy that all the girls like and that our protagonist just somehow has a chance encounter to meet with and has some kind of random reason to be in communication with him. They're neighbors. He's trying to use her for something and then realize he has feelings for her through the process, or he's just kind of the arrogant guy that all the girls like, and there's actually kind of the goofy friend guy who does live next door, whom everyone overlooks, and then our protagonist realizes that this guy's actually fantastic, and he's like the hero at the end, and they get to go off and make everyone else jealous.
I'd rent this movie.
Yeah,
That's good. That sounds good.
You'd rent it.
I would.
And,
I would rent it.
A lot of young girls would rent it, and they would watch it over and over and over again. And we have a lot of movies like that here, and it's amazing to me how many middle-aged women come in, middle-aged men too, and they go, "My daughter just loves this. Can I get a free screener copy just so I can stop paying for it on Redbox or something else?" So
it's through identification that's what's getting them, and to live out that fantasy. And so most people are going to be that girl in junior high or that guy friend that was maybe overlooked, and so they identify.
Yeah, they identify.
And that's where we're getting that.
And here's what's interesting about it. The younger girls want to see the junior high girl because she's a little bit older than what she is, or she's very close in age. Right. Girls at that age are very obviously self-conscious. They want to know what other girls are doing, if they're behind, so that they can get ahead. Boys at that age are also very curious, and boys at that age secretly really like those movies too. They like the really feel-good movies. They understand these experiences, and they get just as emotionally drawn into them as well. Boys at that age will not identify with a male version of that. Boys at that age would rather go see an action film or something like that if they want the male skew. So they're not going to go after a male version of that. Younger boys will, ages 6 to 11, but a tween-aged boy doesn't want to see tween-age boys. He'll watch a tween-age girl film and lie to his friends that he did, or he wants to go see a rated R action film. And that's actually where the other big genre is, the aging male comeback film.
You also write in your notes for your book, Writing for the Green Light, that you want to do your best to present a pitch without looking desperate.
Yes.
And you say that looking desperate may get you a raw deal, or it may not be as favorable. I'm curious, what are signs of desperation, and why? Why would being uber confident get you a better deal when the script is still the same, but maybe the screenwriter's a little unsure of themselves?
When I refer to pitch meetings, and I kind of explained pitch meetings, the best way to handle a pitch meeting would be treating it like a first date. The same rules apply in any facet of business, and they apply when you're pitching your screenplay or just presenting it in some way. If you're on a first date and you look desperate, you give off this really bad negative vibe. You're not confident in yourself, you don't believe in the work, or maybe when you're desperate about something, you're trying to push the work as it is, and you're not listening to how the other party maybe is kind of saying, we'd prefer it a little bit more over here. We're open to the idea, but we'd prefer it a little bit more like this. And if an individual is shying away from that and desperately holding on to what they feel it should be initially, they just don't present a very good image of themselves as being collaborative. Desperation can also come across of an individual's coming to me, let's say, and it's a film market or at a film festival. I'm not the person they need to be pitching to, and I might explain that, and I might give them a business card of the right person to go talk to, but they continue pitching their script to me, and I'm not the guy who can help them. And it just kind of has this vibe of, okay, look, I'm not saying it's a negative against the screenplay, but you don't necessarily seem to understand the dynamic of how a business works and who to talk to in that business and all of that. It's a slight little thing where over time too many of those start to kind of push your opportunities away from you. Whereas if you do the opposite, you force yourself to fake confidence, and there's a lot of ways you can do that. You are only, you truly try to listen to what people are telling you and approach the business in a way where you're presenting your script and your ideas in a confident, happy, fun way, and you're quick to say, if that idea doesn't work for you, don't worry about it, or you're being a little bit more easygoing with your work. that presents more of like, okay, this person understands that Hollywood's an evolving thing. The script is never really written until the final cut of the movie is finished. All those sorts of nuances.
So again, let's say I'm in front of the person that is the decision maker. Mm-hmm. What are some signs that are going to give me the appearance of confidence, even if I'm not? Because sometimes I think uber confidence to me is a turnoff. I'd actually rather see more of a real person, but I know a lot of people don't subscribe to that same belief. But what are some things, I know you said being too quick to be defensive. Mm-hmm. Sounds like that shows that you're wounded by the notes and that maybe it's too much for you to handle. But just, you're saying again, keeping it light, it sounds like?
Well, you bring up a really good point. You're correct. Faking confidence doesn't necessarily mean being narcissistic. And I don't mean to come off that way and have that be that. But it's a good point you're making. You're correct. To fake confidence, it's more about just realizing you're presenting work. You're presenting a blueprint of what could be a movie, but that blueprint is open to everyone else's ideas as well. So you're correct in saying, don't take any changes or adjustments to heart. Don't be too defensive about your work. But also, you got to watch the offensive part too, and not be too in love with your work, not be too self-absorbed with it, and recognize that you're not the only writer in Hollywood, and that you see it more as a collaboration of personalities working together to get a script in motion versus just you as a sole contributor to the script. So it's just a shift of how to view the overall relationship, I guess. Looking desperate is, going to a film market, a film festival, and just pitching your ideas to anybody and everybody who will give you 30 seconds of their ear. Looking desperate is being in an elevator and then realizing you're next to somebody who's kind of related to somebody else who has a connection to a decision maker, and then pitching them your idea awkwardly in an elevator. That's looking desperate. It's chasing trends. It's inventing scenarios that just aren't real business opportunities for your work.
Scott, let's say that I don't have access to your book and
Mm-hmm.
I don't have access to a lot of other things. So where would I find what sells? You had mentioned earlier, go to a Redbox, see what titles are on the front of the
front on the lower part, yeah.
Really? Front to the lower?
Or that augment big studio titles, yeah. But continue, sorry.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I did not know that. Okay,
Yeah.
so then go to your local Redbox, peruse the titles that are out there in the front.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since I've been to a Redbox. So
Yeah.
is that how it's set up, where you have the films right there?
Yeah, I think, look, it's a huge question to say, what should I write? And I do my best to answer that in the easiest way for new writers in my book. And I try to break that down the best I can, but I mean, it's a really big question. And the thing I certainly don't want to see any screenwriters run into is just feeling like they have to blindly guess. I try to answer that in the book, but if you don't have access to the book, the best advice I could give to a screenwriter is, yes, you can go to a Redbox machine. It used to be Blockbuster, but those all turned into cell phone stores. You can go to a Redbox machine, look at the independent films on there. So independent would be the family titles at the bottom. Look for the live action ones, usually with a dog or an animal on them. And then also look at the big studio films that are kind of, throughout the machine you'll see them in different spots. Whatever a big studio film is, look to the ones that are like right next to that. Or get on Netflix and find a big studio movie in the lineup, and then look at the independent movie you've never heard of that's next to it. That's the independent Hollywood zone. That's where I work. Those are the scripts that we're in need of. That's where I think you're going to get your best indicator as to the genres that work, the genre themes you're going to see, the number of cast members, all that information. And another source you could do is, if you have writing experience, if you have a couple of screenplays you're confident in that you think are interesting for Hollywood, I would call up development agents, creative executives. You can find their information in several different sources. LinkedIn or any platform like that is a great way to kind of kickstart it. But contact them and basically say, I'm interested in writing a script. What works, and if it's interesting to you, could I write a treatment and present it to you and then write it for you? You could do that as a scenario and just go direct to the source and write something for them. I mean, I think that's actually the big question a lot of newbie writers have is, how do you get from point A to point B? My whole reasoning for the book was answering that question the best I could. That's information I certainly didn't have about the movie business when I left film school. Nobody really tells you how to bridge that gap of, okay, I don't know anybody, how do I build a career out of anything? Producers in Hollywood they already know what sell. Creative executives in Hollywood, they know what sell. They all have really great ideas. Another way to do it is go try to talk to them and say, look, I want to write scripts. I'm looking to connect with somebody who knows what sells. I'll write whatever script you want me to write. You lead the way. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could, I guess, really figure out what's going to get you some attention.
And that would lead to just an initial 5-minute meeting? I mean, if someone presented themselves professionally on the phone and seemed flexible, would that actually then open the door to, okay, well, we'll meet with you for 5 minutes to see a spec script that you have?
I mean, it's definitely worth a 5-minute call. I think a true producer in Hollywood, somebody who's well connected, a creative executive in Hollywood, if they're working for a company that they're comfortable with, but maybe they're not having that opportunity to work on the stuff that they want to, but they have all the connections you wish you had, that's a great link. And yes, if you went out to them and basically approached them and said, I have 3 scripts of this genre. I would love to present them to you, and I'm not trying to get you to buy these scripts. If you're interested, fantastic, but I'm not trying to get you to buy these. I want to work with somebody and develop something from scratch. You're a creative executive, you know what sells, you have contacts, and I'm sure you have story ideas that you just don't have time to put together. Let me be that fix in your system. I'll get you the script you need, and then we can go hit the marketplace together. And that goes into faking confidence. It's a scary scenario to be in, but if you are able to approach that and basically present that kind of conversation, you will actually see quite a few doors open and a lot of emails answered.
Likability versus raw talent, what percentage do you think gets people a deal?
Talent's important. I think likability is very important. I think persistence and the ability to work hard are the most important. I think likability gets the door open. Likability is a crucial factor in terms of just being able to walk your way into a scenario, get people to listen to you, and take your ideas and your talent seriously. But that's the first part of the equation. It's the most important part of the first step of the equation. But once you have that opportunity presented to you, you have to follow through with a lot of hard work and talent. You can, if you're not 100% confident in your own talent, and no artist ever is, that's where faking confidence kind of comes into play. There's sort of tricks and things you can do to sort of push things more in your favor. I outline that a bit in the book, where I list out all the things that readers hate about spec scripts. And it's basically just an overview of everything that is a turn-off to them. It's an indicator of a writer who just doesn't get what the system needs, and why it's important not to have any of those elements. And they range from everything of too many characters in your script, to grammatical errors and things like that. Very fixable things. But if you make sure to get rid of as many of those, you're just weighing more odds in your favor of getting your script taken seriously.
But ultimately, the biggest reason that a script is not seen to fruition, it's not made, what is it usually?
Out of all the spec scripts in Hollywood, the reason it's not made to fruition is just people writing the wrong thing. So there's so many. My view is this: it's like there's this stereotype in Hollywood that there's every other waiter you meet has a screenplay on the side. Every real estate agent's writing something on the side, and in truth, that's reality. A lot of people come here with big Hollywood dreams and want to write that great screenplay, and people just kind of go, oh, well, they're not talented, they're writing bad scripts. Certainly there's a lot of bad scripts, but at the same time, there's a lot of very talented people who just aren't writing the right things. So they're not writing the right things, they're not writing what Hollywood needs, and they're not presenting their work in the way that it needs to be presented to get doors to open. So if they just shift a few of those elements, if they write what Hollywood needs, which are goldmine genres, as we outline in the book, if they present their ideas in a way Hollywood needs to hear them, which is about pitching your story in a way that is, this is how my script helps your company, this is how my script answers that need in the Hollywood system, and then if you just kind of get yourself out there at the same time, that's how you really do it. It's building. It's not selling a one-off script. It's building a career.
Scott, how do you negotiate a contract without an agent? So let's say we've gotten to a point where we're ready to sign.
Mm-hmm.
There's been many drafts. The screenwriters met with numerous people.
And my answers here, they're not to knock agents. Agents are great people, and they're vital in this business. But for new writers starting out, I have seen too many talented writers sign a deal with an agent, actors too, and they get stuck in a scenario where they can't get out of. And the belief is that you need an agent to negotiate your contracts for you or open doors for you, and it's really not true. How you negotiate your own contract, it seems scary because contracts are very scary documents. They're legal, and there's all these terms and definitions that are overly worded. In truth, if you can read a menu at a restaurant, you can read a contract. And if you can ask the waiter for mayo on the side instead of on the burger, you can negotiate a deal point. Like, it's not any different. But a contract is nothing more than common ground. It's a piece of paper that explains how you and a production company or producer are going to work together. What are the terms? And all of that. So you basically just read it, you look for the elements that make sense to you and that you agree with, you highlight or red flag anything that seems awkward or intrusive or you don't understand, and you throw it back at them and you say, answer these questions and we'll continue the conversation. If you're unsure of it, you can always hire a lawyer. And yes, you'll have to pay for a lawyer, but hiring a lawyer on a one-time contract who's only working for your better interest, whereas an agent is working for dozens of writers' better interests. More importantly, they're working for their own interest. You're going to get all the attention you need. You're going to see all the details you need to see in there. And you will have a valid source kind of vetting out all those major questions on your behalf. When to sign the deal there's no real formula to it. It's basically just making sure that you're clear on all the requirements, you're comfortable with the money, or whatever transaction you're going to have in there. You understand the flow, the workflow, what action item you have to do will trigger what action item on the other side, and you understand when the term will conclude and how to exit it, or anything along those lines.
Right. So let's say we're at this hypothetical meeting and I'm looking over this contract and I'm like, you know what, let me see, perpetuity, what's that mean? Let me look that up. You know what, actually, can I take this with me and have an attorney look at it? Because there's a couple things. The scenario, let's say you would say yes, and you would give the person, a week to find someone and have them review it, make an appointment, and then come back to you and have any changes?
Oh yeah, and in truth, I've never been in a scenario where I've seen a contract handed to somebody and they're expected to review it and sign it on the spot.
Okay.
So you never have to worry about that.
Oh.
Usually, let's take a hypothetical pitch meeting. You know, you come in, you're the writer, you show a good amount of confidence, you treat it like the first day, as we talked about. It's casual. Yeah. It's casual, it's fun, you present your ideas, they seem to be in alignment with everyone else. You end the conversation in a fun way, which is like, well, we seem to be in alignment with a lot of our ideas, as I just said, and I really look forward to being in touch with everybody. You send a polite follow-up, they express some interest, etc. You bounce emails back and forth, and then when they're ready to say, we'd like to hire your services on this movie, or we have a movie idea that seems in alignment with some of the projects you've written, we'd like to see what kind of a treatment you could write for us. That'd be your first option, and that would be kind of they would send an agreement to you, a Word doc, you get the Word document, and you review it, and you'll notice that when you type anything in it or if you adjust any words, it'll suddenly turn red on the screen, and it's called redlining it. And you get to put all your notes in there, you can add comments, you can add questions, or if you have a lawyer, you can forward that Word document to them, they'll do the same thing for you, and they'll probably do a crazy job with it, called making it bleed, so to speak. And you just email it back to the party, and you can bounce the contract back and forth several times. And you're just highlighting the points that you have questions about, or your lawyer does, or your manager, and you wait for their response, and they'll give on some things and they won't on others, and you just kind of see what you're comfortable with.
Right. So then this theoretical email exchange, probably with numerous people CC'd on it, would be like, we agreed to terms 1 through 5, but 7, we want to change it to this,
Yeah.
and then please see attached, kind of a thing. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. So it's not where, hey, why don't you come on in? Great, here's a pen, sign this. Oh, sorry, you don't agree with this? Well, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You would have time to review it. You could review it on your own terms, wherever you are, show other people. It's not this high pressure thing where it's like buying a car.
It is not a high pressure
okay.
situation, and you should never feel that you are being pressured into signing something, ever. So it's if you feel uncomfortable with the scenario and they're not comfortable with you, they're not comfortable emailing you a contract, or they're not comfortable letting you show it to an attorney, they're probably not a company worth doing business with. Any legitimate company, any legitimate entity is going to totally understand that flow. And they're going to be understanding that you need to have it reviewed. And it takes time. It's not like a back and forth thing that happens in 2 minutes. They got a lot of stuff on their plate, you do too. So, take it, I would say 3 days is a good turnaround, that you receive it, maybe send a thanks email just to let them know you received it. And then take 2 or 3 days to really read through it and make sure you understand all the terms, and highlight the questions that you have, and just send it back.
Great. So in terms of the studio being flexible, that's a good sign for the screenwriter as well, to see that it's not high pressure in terms of, but have you ever seen it where it draws out and
Yes.
then finally it's like, look, you need to make a decision here?
I normally see it draw out the most when an agent's involved. Agents tend to, I call them wedgers. Lawyers can be wedgers, agents can be wedgers. Again, these are very smart, savvy people who are very valuable later stages in your career. But when you're starting out, your first couple of deals, you really don't need to deal with them intently. I've seen really talented writers have an option on the table, have a deal on the table. I've seen the company want to work with them, and I've seen the writer be very accommodating to it. And then I've seen agents interfering, calling conference calls, demanding crazy demands, and increasing the money. Like, it's kind of stupid numbers where they're not even really gaining all that much for the amount of time they're really putting in there. It's more just like the principle of just pushing to get the most exorbitant deal possible. And what happens is those companies will just kind of say, you know what, we're done. We're not going to deal with you anymore. And I talk about this in the book, actually, as I overheard a speakerphone conversation exactly like this, where the creative executive on a film said, you know what, I really like the script, I really like the writer, I'm not dealing with you anymore, and I'm canceling this deal. And then, of course, the writer's just like, the agent was just like, wait, let's come up with a deal. And they just canceled the call. And that writer got screwed because the agent came in and kind of fouled up the deal. Since an agreement is about common ground, if you have the writer and you have the company, they both have a reason to be working together, they can find common ground. And look, it's always going to be, you're always going to have to fight a couple of points here and there, but it's always going to be common ground.
Going back earlier to something I said about their first script, a writer's first script being the do-all and end-all, and you said to have several, like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Can you talk about those 2 or 3 scripts that writer should have in their arsenal?
Yeah, an important factor with that, most writers want to showcase how talented they are, and so they'll write 2 or 3 scripts that are completely different. They want to showcase that they can do drama, that they can do family, that they can do something else. Not only should a writer focus on the goldmine genres, it's really important that those 2 or 3 scripts are the same goldmine genre. And the thing a writer will say instantly is, won't I get like known just for writing that one thing? And the answer is yes, you'll get branded, and that's a great problem to have. That means that you're going to become one of those writers that becomes a go-to. Oh, this guy can really write family tween girl films, and it's like that's the person they're going to go to when they need a writer who can do that. If you write too many, different ideas, if you present all your scripts, all of a sudden then, a creative executive might go, this is a great script. Do you have anything else like that? So that they can see if you're consistent with your ideas, with your talent, and if you can bring fresh ideas to the same goldmine genre.
So are you saying that, let's suppose I'm, again, the screenwriter, that I should have 3 tween girls, or I could have 1 tween girl, 1 aging superhero, and the other one a family Christmas story where the dog is lost and then comes home again?
I would say focus on one. If
Really?
you want,
Okay.
if you want, we have family Christmas dog adventure is one of the goldmine genres. It doesn't have to be a dog, it doesn't have to be Christmas either, but it's more a holiday themed animal film that's very, very family safe. You can write 3 of those. So you could change the holiday. You could maybe change the animal, but you got to stay in alignment with that. If you want to do tween girl films, you got to do tween girl films all the way. Maybe they can be, in a different state. But their problems pretty much have to be the same. In one, maybe it's magic where dreams can come true magically one day. Another could be that her Sweet 16 present, I don't know if it's a car or something like that, some dream scenario like that, actually has the magical ability to travel. I mean, I'm just coming up with random ideas, but it's like you just have to have fresh, innovative ideas to the same goldmine genre. Then you become consistent at that, and you become branded as a writer who can deliver that fast and innovative. And it's kind of like being an actor who gets typecast. Talk to any actor, an actor who's typecast, that's like a dream scenario because they're the first person that a casting director will call. And you can do that as a writer too.
So get that indie coming of age, which is part your story, part someone else's story, out of your system, write it, maybe put it somewhere, and then start going to the red box, seeing what's, you said, to the left, to the bottom, or something around there?
Just around it, yeah, just around
okay.
the big studio movies. You'll see the family dog adventure movies at the bottom. There's always going to be kid movies with animals in them at the bottom, several of them usually. And then if you look more in the middle zone, you'll see the big studio whatever, a big studio action film, and then next to it you'll see the coming of age, the aged male action film, comeback film. You'll see that kind of movie next to the big studio one. Choose one you love. Choose one that you feel gives you the most creative ability. A women apparel thriller. I mean, like, people will knock at these genres like, oh, they're so commercial, etc. Get into them. Like, really get into a young girl's head. A male writer who can get into a young girl's head and effectively pull that off, like, you're talented and you will get noticed. If you are a young female writer and you write a kick-ass action movie for a coming-of-age male actor, you'll get attention. And if you can do that consistently, like, you'll get noticed.
Going back to the women in peril, what are some scenarios where the peril is not too dark? You know, I've watched Lifetime movies for years, and I actually enjoy them as much as you can kind of see the cliche scenario that happens all the time. But what are these women in peril stories? How do they usually end up, of course? And what's too dark?
You don't, if it feels more like a Law and Order SVU episode, that's too dark. You want it, you can do like a Don't Take My Baby movie, which is like an adoption scenario that's gone wrong. But the baby cannot be in like physical jeopardy. You can have the vigilante female who has been wronged by the system, and she has to take justice into her own hands. You know, she can go, you know, take revenge on males, but it's not like a murder spree. It's more like she's going to get back at them by hurting them where it hurts most. And I don't mean a knock to the balls. I'm talking about like ruining their business, showcasing them as a cheater to their spouse. You know, this kind of stuff, ruining their lives in that sense, like a smart, tactical, strategic way of doing it. That's more the theme behind it.
And this female in peril, again, who is she? Like what, because she can't be from a bad neighborhood, right? She has to be still middle class, college educated, nice girl, maybe did a couple bad things, right?
We've all done a couple bad things, and she's very reflective of just the average human experience. But she should be, you know, youngish, middle-aged maybe, and it's essentially just, she made all the right decisions in life. She did everything that she was supposed to do, and somehow or another, life has just kind of wronged her. The man that she married turned out to be abusive or a cheater, or maybe he's corrupt and he's getting arrested for embezzlement. She's doing all the right things to help a young mother in need with her infant, and then it just turns into a nightmare. She makes one mistake thinking that it's not a big deal, and she's just following her heart, and then it turns out to be a nightmare. It's like the reverse fatal attraction scenario. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff like that. But they should be reflective of just a normal person who's just doing the right thing, who just gets caught up in something that they never expected to have happen to them. And it's even better when they're doing what they think is right and the system wrongs them.
And why wouldn't we want to see someone that's a little bit off that maybe we wouldn't be, but it's kind of interesting? Like you see someone at the bus stop and you think, wow, I wonder what their life is like. Why wouldn't most people want to see that? What, because it's not reflective of them and they're scared of it? I just find that fascinating.
They can't identify with it as easily. And so if they can't truly put themselves into that lifestyle and truly see how this character could be, like an evolution of themselves, it's just more difficult to grasp onto. It's either got to be like something that they see that they could have been, something they wished they could have been, something along those lines. Those are really the stories that really, they talk about like the asshole character is more interesting. And the reason why is because we all wish we had that bite where we could just go say those things and do those things and behave that way. It's an evolution of what we wished we could see. It's kind of a fantasy. But there has to be something within that character we identify with. Even somebody as evil as like Alex in A Clockwork Orange or something like that. It's at the end of the day, there has to be some element in that character that we can see. And that's what it is.
Where does Mar Vista go to acquire movies?
So we produce about 20 to 25 feature films on our own each year. We produce those primarily for major networks here in the United States, and we also have major output deals with global companies like TF1 in France, etc. So it's like we kind of know our end user very, very well. So we are able to put money into films and have a home for those. But we also acquire another 25 to 35 movies per year, sometimes more as we're learning for 2015-16. And we look in a variety of sources to find those. We get submissions blindly from producers. We talk to the major agencies who represent producers who are making films on spec. We work with producers' representatives. We will basically find any source who has access to new content and go look. The biggest misconception young filmmakers have is I'm going to go produce a movie, spend a lot of money on credit cards or something else, and just get it to film festivals and everything will magically take place after that. The truth is, like, it doesn't happen that way. Some companies will buy movies from film festivals. There are some film festivals where movies are going to find a home, but most of the major film festivals, whether it's Toronto, Cannes, etc., those movies are already being represented. They're looking to showcase it for foreign clients. They're looking to showcase it for rights overseas or limited rights in the US. Like, they're being represented though.
Can we talk about focus groups?
Yeah.
Because you were in the mindset of a young tween girl, and I can tell you it sounds exactly like all of us women when we were younger. So how did you know all this? What type of questions are asked? What's going on at these focus groups with the male aging, superhero movie where the young boy wants to look up to someone older that's more established? What's going on in these groups?
You mean in our production offices, like when we're discussing these films, or you mean more in a general sense?
More in a general sense. Where are you getting the information in terms of what the audience wants? How do you know that they want all this?
I get this information from data. A lot of data of what movies get revenue in and which movies do not. Which movies my foreign buyers respond to and which ones they don't. Which movies domestic TV channels pay attention to and which ones they pass on. And it's surprising. The movies that cost very little, that don't have much to really offer, sometimes get really big, sizable price tags from major TV channels here in the US and overseas. For a writer to really have one of those opportunities, it's not guessing what people want, it's just being true to the story, being true to the characters. And I'm in writing for the Greenlight does not talk at all about the craft of screenwriting. That's not my space. My space, there's fantastic books, there's numerous college professors who can speak to that much better than I can. But I can tell you what works. I can tell you what sells. So how to get into the mindset of a character, it's just being responsive to what you see in the real world and not letting the story get ahead of what a character would do. If anybody has brothers or sisters If anybody has children, just you can try to present something to them, like an idea of maybe what we could do as a family or anything else, and you'll just notice they will react in ways you don't expect them to, and that's what characters should do too. And universal themes always are the only thing that will keep that all cohesive. So how to get into the mindset of a coming-of-age male actor? You just have to look at what the main audience is, like who the main audience is, and what is it that they hope to get out of the movie. We talked about, like, if you're going to a grocery store and you're purchasing a box of cereal, something like that, you're purchasing it because you want that taste, you want that flavor, it's attractive to you, you know what you're getting at the end of the day. A movie actually follows the same mindset. People want emotional experiences, and so if the demo is males of this age or girls of this age, you don't want to hold up a mirror and show them reality. You want to show them a fantasy of what could be, and a reflection of what they hope it looks like on the other side. You're giving them an experience. So get into their mindset of not who they are, what do they want to see. Giving people what they want is really the answer.
Right. So one step up from where they already are.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. You talked before about women in peril thrillers, that you notice most of them are upper middle class.
Right.
Well, that's because the average audience is middle class, lower middle class, and they fantasize about what that side of the tracks looks like.
Sure.
Young girls identify with the main protagonist of a tween girl film who's kind of a little bit awkward, a little bit shy, a little bit unsure of herself, because that's how most tweens feel, males and females. So they look up to those characters who can move past that by just being themselves. And that's why that genre works really well. The creature feature, it's the same deal. The male comeback action hero, it's the same deal. The male comeback action hero is fantastic because it's a male action hero who's given up that lifestyle and then gets forced into it. And I think that's, as a middle-aged man, you want to kind of have that dream fantasy scenario. You could be a Dolph Lundgren going back in and doing some crazy missions in a foreign country or something.
So per se, you never have like a full focus group where you sit down women ages 35 to 45 who make this much money per year and say, which of these scenes resonated with you most? It's never been.
I've never been a part of that. Mm-hmm. I think writers can do. I think writers have the best capability of learning those skill sets by taking acting classes or improv classes and learning how actors and how other people will see a script who aren't writers. We have those focus groups internally as a company by looking at what our clients want. Because a TV channel in the Middle East or in London or in Japan, they know what their audience wants. They know what tween girls respond to in Tokyo. And so they'll tell us, we really like it when films do this. And if enough of those triggers line up, we know we need to start seeing that in movies. As a writer, how do you get there? Again, you can't guess the trends, you can't guess those factors. So just write really true, honest tween girl films or coming-of-age male action films, dog Christmas films, any of the goldmine genres spelled out in Writing for the Greenlight. Just write any of those in a universal, true way, and the script will get noticed and your talent will get noticed, and then you become pegged as a person that can be communicated with to write the scripts that these companies need. That's the idea of it. Your first couple scripts out of the gate, they're a business card, they're showcasing what you bring to Hollywood, that you understand what Hollywood needs, and it needs these kinds of films to function. So once you know that and you present that and you show consistency that you can deliver that, when the other side of the table goes, okay, you passed the test, you seem to know what we want, this is what we need written, can you do it? And that's how it really kickstarts.
When a movie is brought to a television distributor, what type of advance should a filmmaker expect?
All over the map. All over the map. There are films that, it's becoming more and more common that films are represented on a revenue share, which is just a split of percentages. There's a lot of situations where an upfront called a minimum guarantee or MG is paid, and that can be a good faith MG of $10,000, $15,000. It can be a massive MG of $100,000, $200,000, sometimes $400,000 if all rights are being acquired, and then percentages on the back end. There can be an outright purchase, which is really, really high. The story that most people know from the 90s and the Sundance era with, when the Weinsteins were Miramax and not the Weinstein Company, it was the idea that an independent could bring a movie to the marketplace that no one had ever heard of before, that there's no cast names in it or anything like that, and that like huge dollars would just be put down on it. That's a different era. It doesn't exist today. Films are not marketed the same way today, and so the value of films is completely different. And besides, technology is dramatically increased, so with advances in technology, films are much cheaper to produce, more people are producing them, there's a huge overabundance of films out there, and so the value of putting down large sums of money has actually gone down quite a bit. So in a very short answer, it's all over the map. It depends who's in it, depends what genre it is, depends the quality, depends if it's fully deliverable. If a movie's not fully deliverable, like if it doesn't have all the legal elements on the back end, that's problematic and it's a deal breaker. And I have some other writings that I'm putting together on that specific point actually, about how to make a film deliverable. These are all elements that can put the price tag of what a movie is worth to a production company in completely different quadrants. And I'll tell you this, we run very, very detailed analytics on every film. So when we review a film, we will have it screened by several different people, and we do compensations to other projects. We do very detailed assumptions, projections of what we think the film is worth. And so when we give percentages and price tags on movies, we've done a lot of research to come up with those numbers, and it has to be incentivizing to us, and it has to be incentivizing to the producer, and we put a lot of calculation into finding that middle ground.
And this is all like computerized data, it's watch time and where someone may have dropped off, and
it's all in that, and it's also it's all in that, and it's also just in general like experience of knowing how films move. I've been in international sales for a long, long time. I've been in domestic sales in North America for a long, long time. I've been in meeting rooms and presented projects, and I've seen faces wince up when I present a project that I thought would sell really well, and I've seen excitement over projects I didn't think stood a chance. And I've developed a very good barometer about what movies work, what doesn't work, as has anyone in this business who's been around for a while. You learn what makes sense, what moves the needle, and what doesn't. And so all of those are factors into what gives a film a price tag. So when a producer has this wild assumption that his movie is worth $500,000, $2 million, or something ridiculous when it's just not, if he's getting offers that are just revenue shares or very, very, very small MGs, there's a very logical, rational, mathematical answer to why.